gone. And I said, gone where? And then she started crying and she said, Mom, Kellen's gone. So when I had gotten there and the yellow line was up, it was because he had been shot. And that was the longest ride from the airport back to his apartment building where everybody was at that point. I don't remember driving. I do remember talking to two of my friends, two of my close friends, but I don't remember the drive. And I remember getting out of my car, my Ford Explorer, that I was going to give to Kellen that morning as a gift. And I remember walking towards the building where there was no more police line. And I remember my daughter's boyfriend and his brother were standing there, and I just remember falling forward and them catching me. And I remember the most anguish that I ever felt in my life in that moment. It's indescribable, the anguish. But there's this certain shriek that I've heard from other mothers, and I realized the other mothers that had lost their children, that shriek, I realized that I had that same shriek. It's like almost like a broken bond or something. And I remember calling our head minister after pulling myself together as much as I could a little later. And I remember our head minister saying, "You understand, and you're going to be all right." And I so needed to hear that from him because I believed him when he said it. So now I have a memorial service to do. I have LAPD to deal with, detectives. What happened to him? He was standing outside doing his usual insomniac run. He was talking on the phone, smoking a cigarette, 3 a.m, like he always did. He had been out there for some time because that's what he did every night, right? And some gang members came along. Apparently there was something going on down in the jails downtown, and it spilled out into the streets. And that particular night, black men were targeted, and he was out there. I mean, what are the chances? I got a kid that's joining the LAPD. He's not a gangbanger, but he was a random victim. He wasn't the only one that night, but I think he was the only one that got killed that night. Others were just beaten horribly, but you know, they couldn't beat him because it would have taken a lot, because he was a big kid, and he was LAPD cadet. He was still going through the process, because I know he had told me, "Mom, they turned me down for my background check, but I can appeal, so I'm going to appeal." And I was like, okay, just appeal then, appeal. But he was still going forth in the process. He was hopeful that after he did his appeal that he would be able to resume and actually go through the force. So I having to plan the memorial services in Kansas City because at the time, my mother, who had just had breast cancer surgery, and we couldn't tell her what had happened to him that morning because she was still in the hospital. We had to wait until she got home, and my brother had to get her home, get her in bed, and then tell her. And then she called me, and that was so hard to hear her lose her first grandson like that. Oh, when I called his dad, he was that same parental shriek. You know, he was so distraught, so inconsolable. It was so hard to tell him. And so, because both my parents, my dad at the time was suffering from bone cancer, and my mom had just had a mastectomy, and my parents couldn't get to LA for a memorial service. So we had to take the memorial service to Kansas City. And because we didn't have enough money to get a last minute flight, we had to drive. So luckily, we were able to get a van, and some of us were able to drive, and some of us were able to fly. My husband at that time, who was having some health challenges, his oldest daughter flew him into Kansas City and met him there, and the rest of us drove non-stop, 22 hours. We couldn't, because of time off from work time, we couldn't afford to stop and get a hotel overnight and rest. And we were so wired and crazy anyway that we just drove on. And his girlfriend, of course, was with us. We get to Kansas City, we memorialize him, and that was the hardest thing I ever had to do in life. I can't imagine that there could be anything harder. So, oddly, what's interesting about it is that when people come at you with bullshit, like on your job, or people talking about you or something like that, it's kind of like they can't ever match the pain, so you don't really get your feelings hurt anymore, because they can't match that pain at trying to destroy you, because you've already been destroyed. No one can match that pain. So when people say ugly shit about you, it's like, really? Okay. And many of us get to that place in life where we don't give a damn what people think or say about us without having something that tragic happen to you. But it's kind of like on my job when people say, oh, don't do that, you're going to lose your job. Oh, don't do that, you're going to blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I can't imagine that would hurt me worse than losing my kid. I think the worst part about it, well, not the worst part, but some of the things that I encountered at work, I had a person come to me and ask me, I just have a question for you. I'm like in my office minding my business. And this person walks up and says, I just have a question for you. Do you forgive the guys who killed your son? I'm like, what? Do I what? Do you forgive the ones who attacked and killed your son? And I said, I don't have to. Because if the Creator ordained it to happen, they couldn't help it. I couldn't help that I wasn't there by a certain time. I couldn't help that he was outside smoking a cigarette and talking on the phone. I couldn't help he was born. So everything happened like it was supposed to happen. And as much as I'd like to change it, I can't. So what's to forgive? And she walked away. I knew what she was trying to get at. She was trying to have me on a road of forgiveness so that I could be well. But it was just the timing of it. I didn't hold that against that person, right? And then I remember once telling my supervisor, I need to go home. I'm not having a great day. My son is on my mind, and I'm having a bad day. I need to go home. And I had the time, right? I needed to get away because I wasn't being productive at work, right? And when I tell her that, she says, oh, your son? I said, yeah, my son got killed, and I'm dealing with a lot with this. And she says, oh, how long has he been dead? Now her, I won't tell you the things I thought about saying to her, but I didn't. I walked away and I went home. So you deal with all kind of insensitive people. Even right after Kellen's passing, a family member brought someone to my home, a gentleman that had tragically lost a child some years before as well. And I wasn't in my weeping moments at the time when he came by with my cousin to visit. And I remember him, while I'm talking about what happened and just kind of sharing as I'm visiting with my cousin and him and some other family members who were there. And this person says to me, you don't even act like your kid just got killed. I'm like, is this fool in my house saying this to me? You need to take your box of chicken and go. I wasn't rude to him. I didn't feel rudeness at the moment. I think I was more in shock when that was said to me in my own home. You know, how one mourns from moment to moment changes and morphs. And to ask someone why they're smiling or why they're crying or why they're feeling depressed or why they're feeling happy or why are they still traveling or anything, it's none of your damn business. Because with grief and loss and mourning, the emotions, they morph and they move, and it's like you'll be feeling one way one minute and another way the next. So no one should ever question where someone is in that moment. So right after he passed, now comes my trip to the Dominican Republic, my girls' trip with my traveling partners. And I thought about it, and my girlfriend was like, hey, if you don't want to go, we understand. We're going to refund you. I said, no. I need to go. And so I went. And we were in the Dominican Republic in Puerto Plata for like 5 or 6 days. We stayed at this amazing villa. And we ate the most amazing food. And we drank the most amazing rum. And I got a chance to snorkel for the first time. Kellen told me, Mom, make sure you snorkel. And so that's kind of my thing when I travel. If I'm near an ocean, I make it my business to go snorkeling, because it's like that moment that I connect with him again. And I remember going under the water with this personal guide and having my mask on with my snorkel out, and him trying to get some pictures of me underwater so that I could capture the moment, right? And I remember beginning to cry, and I'm thinking, bitch, you gonna drown. You can't cry underwater with this mask on, with this thing in your mouth. So I got through that. And I had my moments while I was in the room by myself. I didn't want to ruin the trip for anybody. I felt the support and love of my girls, but I still had to have my moments of weeping, because after all, it's only been 3 months. So I ended up coming back home. I find out that my husband that I was married to for 23 years, we're getting divorced. We had already talked about it. It's not like he divorced me after my kid died and all of that. It's not like that. We were still friends. We were still getting along. He was just as distraught because he helped raise my son alongside me and his dad. And of course he felt something about the loss of his son too. So that had nothing to do with us staying married or getting divorced, but it was just time for us to get divorced. And then he remarried right after that. And great lady. We all got along. We all shared our grandkids and all that stuff. So it wasn't like that. I'm just saying that. But then some months right after that, I had talked with the detectives, and I said, well, what do I need to do? Because do I need to do billboard, or what do I need to do to help find my son's killers or whoever? And he said, Miss Mahone, you ain't got to do nothing. We got this. And I'm like, the LADA saying this to me? You know, you hear all these stories about Los Angeles and all the tragedies that happen here. And I said, okay. He said, but if you want some money, we set some money aside if you want to do billboards, but you're not going to have to do that. And, you know, when they're doing an investigation, they don't tell you everything, because really they're not investigating for you. They're investigating because the law was broken. And if your family member is the victim, they don't really owe you anything, because it's an investigation for a crime that was committed, and they're just trying to get the ones who committed the crime, you know. But inadvertently, the families get some resolution from it, right? So December 23rd of that same year, I get a call. Miss Mahone, we got one. I'm like, this is right before Christmas Eve. What a Christmas gift. That was really bittersweet. In the meantime, my dad, who's got bone cancer, his health is declining. My dog's got cancer. She's declining. And I'm waiting to see this information that the police have. It turns out that these gang members had assaulted my son. My son took his hoodie off and somehow got the shirt of one of the other guys, and they shot him 3 times in the hand where he was trying to deflect bullets, his upper leg, and then the chest wound was the fatal wound. Witnesses came forward, people who couldn't even speak English. Like one guy was Japanese, and He couldn't speak any English, but he came forward to give a testimony. One family, a husband and a wife, they had moved here from, I want to say Guatemala or some Central American country, and they were Spanish speaking only. But they even showed up. And I remember the woman saying that she had just left a country to get away from those gunshots, and then she hears these gunshots outside her window, and then she heard my son gasping for breaths of life. And then another woman who was a Latina, she said, I didn't see anything, but I heard everything. And I just felt like I had to come forward because he was such a nice guy, so polite. Everybody knew him, loved him in that building, that saw him or interacted with him. So they got one out of the three guys who committed this evil against my son. And I remember going to court for the preliminary hearing and accidentally, but there are no accidents, sitting behind the family and the gang members who were related to or acquainted with the guy that they had in custody. His bond was set at $2,040,000 on DNA alone. Yeah, DNA. Because they got that shirt that was at the scene that belonged to him, and they stripped it for every bit of DNA they could get out of it. And that's how they got him. They kept running it at the jails, and he came up a match. And that DNA in his shirt was enough to hold him, because the powder burns from the shot to my son's chest, apparently he fell on top of my son after that, and the powder burns were on his shirt too. So, fasting forward again, my dogs passed away, my dad has passed away, and it's taken some years, but finally a deal was made. This two-time felon was given 17 years for the death of my son. The other two who were involved, never heard that anything ever happened to them, but, you know, they're not going to snitch on one another, you know, so that one guy had to take the fall for everybody, I guess. But at least one person was put away, because let's be for real, a lot of times when random gang acts like that happen, a lot of times they're just that random and nobody ever finds out who did it. So, why am I saying all of this? Because here I am in April of 2023, a whole almost 10 years later. It feels like it happened yesterday still. But his son is a man now. Sure, he'd like to have his dad around, but his mom did a great job raising him, and he's amazing. And my daughter, she's a mom. His stepsisters are moms. His youngest brother, he's a dad of 7. I always said he tried to have all the kids that Kellen probably would have had he still been here. And with therapy, with intensive outpatient therapy even. Throwing myself into my work, taking off disability leave from my work after being convinced by a therapist, you need to take time off. I can honestly say that I survived. It doesn't feel good all the time. And I'm learning to stay in the present. And I'm learning to keep things in their perspective. I'm learning to let myself grieve a little, cry a little, laugh a little. Because Keller was funny as hell. I mean, he was a jokester, prankster, just like his dad. Such a sparkly personality. And I'll say this too, and this might sound kind of weird. You know, when people pass away out of this physical life, what we teach at my Bible school, what Dr. Kinley taught us, is that you don't go anywhere, you're still here. You're just not in a physical body anymore. And that is so true, because I swear sometimes I feel like that bond, like that cord between us is still there, but it's kind of like it's on the other side. And he's visited me in dreams. And one time he came to me while I was with my friend. We were hanging out in Oakland, California, and I laid down and slept that night. Slept really good that night, right? And I dreamed that me and my daughter were in front of this huge wall, and this wall had flowers all over it. And Kellen peeks out from behind the wall and he says, Mom, I just want to let you know I'm happy and I'm okay. I'm happy. Really, Mom. But it was like he was trying to express to me how happy he was, but it was like he didn't have the words to really express it from where he was. And I was like, okay. Me and my daughter were like, okay. You know, he says, if you need me, Mom, he said, I'm just on the other side of this wall. I promise I'm on the other side of this wall. And when I looked at the wall again, the flowers were really little angels. But he let me know that he was still here. I knew that, but it was like I woke up crying, not because I was sad, maybe because I was happy that he said he was happy. And I guess these masks are good for something, right? Besides putting over your mouth. All I'm going to say is that it's been 10 years and I'm 63 now. And I think the best part is that I still have my memories. That I still know that he's okay, as much as he can be, and that his siblings, the loss that it was, they're still doing okay, and they're living their lives, and everybody's moving forward. He was the next in line patriarch with my grandfather's name. So it was a great loss to our family. But there's life after that. Some semblance of a physical life after that. And there's great spiritual growth for me. And the reason why I use the 4th level parking lot as my example is because there were times I could see myself throwing myself off of it. to the point that I didn't want to come to work anymore. So, are you suicidal? I had suicide ideation. I just wanted to not feel any bad stuff ever from that. And that wasn't the way to not feel it. But in the moments that I was distressed, I thought it was. So I'm saying that to say I'm on the 4th level parking lot, and I feel pretty good. I know the mountains are in the background under those clouds, and I know that the people below will wave at me if I wave back. The worst part is when you're looking at pictures and you realize that they'll never get updated. I think that's the worst part. When you see a picture of him when he was in whatever phase of his life, you will never get another picture. So whatever you do, if you want to have memories, keep them up to date. Take pictures often, which we can do that now, right? Put them in a catalog so that you can have the most up-to-date pictures with that individual, with family, with friends, with people that you love, because you never know that you may not get the chance to have those pictures again. And last, I'm going to say, someone's probably saying, how is that inspiring? That's such a sad story. Well, yeah, but keep in mind that life is about the good and the bad, the negative and the positive. And in my Bible school, one of the things that I learned is that you have to have the dark with the light. You can't appreciate the light without the dark. Like, what if you were in the sunlight all the time and had never experienced darkness? Then, what's the point? How do you really say you appreciate the light? And not only that, but you have to have a positive and a negative charge to have electricity, right? So you got to have some of the cuckoo stuff with some of the good stuff to have a real appreciation. And know that all of it, whether you like it or not, is the Creator. It's God. It's Yahweh. All of it. He gets the credit for all of it. I mean, who else are you going to give the credit to? Maybe you believe differently. I don't. But what I'm saying is that it's not something that I enjoyed going through, but it is something that I've gained a great deal from experiencing. Would I have rather gone on a crazy ride in an amusement park? Heck yeah. But, it didn't happen that way. It happened this way. And mental health issues can be overcome. Grief can be overcome. And I can look back down the road of my life and I can see all the times that I was allowed to overcome and overcome and overcome and overcome and overcome. And when I got to this milestone, it didn't feel like I could overcome, but if I look back and I say, shoot, I overcame all those times by grace and mercy, by mercy and grace, then I'm just going to overcome this time too. You don't always know how. It doesn't matter how. You don't need all the details as to how you'll overcome. Just know that you will. It may not be the way you think it's going to be. You may not even like the way you overcome, but you will recognize that you overcame. And then you'll be able to be inspired and hopefully inspire others with your overcomings. Because what else is there? You can have all the money in the world. You can have the best career. You can drive the greatest car. You can live in a tiny house. You can live in a villa. You can live in the United States. You can live in Timbuktu. All that. But you can still be unhappy. You can still be unhappy. So, no matter what, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how hard it gets, no matter how far that road is back there, if you gotta look back and say, overcame, mercy and grace, overcame, mercy and grace, overcame, mercy and grace, and smile your way through it whenever you can. And if you're crying your way through some of it, that's okay too, because I thought that I could work my way through it. And there were times that working did take my mind off of it sometimes, but trust me when I say it eventually caught up with me and I had to go sit it down. So, saying all that to say, I'm still inspired by Kellen. I'm inspired by all my kids. And never forget to say to those that you love them. And never forget to say, especially to your kids, how proud you are of them. Not for the stuff they do or don't do, but look them in the face and say, I'm just proud because you came out of me. And love and cherish one another. And be kind to one another. And above all, continue inspiring one another no matter what the situation, because it really will get better.